I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, but your account has been flagged for review due to irregular activity. I can't release any funds at this time. The words fell with the same weight as the morning frost on the bank's glass counter. Raymond Cole, 81, former chief petty officer in the United States Navy, didn't flinch, but his hand, resting on the withdrawal slip, stiffened slightly. His monthly pension had just cleared, the one he depended on to keep food on the table, heat in the house, and this time to pay for Lorraine's antibiotic, prescribed just last night after her fever spiked. Irregular activity? On a Navy pension that hasn't changed in 15 years? He looked at the teller, a young woman barely out of college already retreating behind procedure. She offered a printed brochure, a helpline, no eye contact, no solution. 7 minutes later, Raymond sat motionless by the entrance when the regional director's black sedan screeched into the parking lot. Before we continue, where are you watching from today? It means a lot to know who's out there. I read every comment. The lobby of the Bank Trust United branch in Elkhart smelled faintly of lemon polish and cheap printer ink. The floors gleamed, but the corners near the heater vents were gathering dust. A fake plant leaned slightly to the left, near the teller line. Its plastic leaves curled from years of sunlight through the tall front windows. Raymond Cole sat on a low bench upholstered in dark blue vinyl. It was one of those seats that looked comfortable until you sat down. He placed his coat carefully beside him and held the brochure in his lap, like it might start speaking if he stared at it long enough. He had always believed in systems, in checklists, in showing up early, in doing things the right way, even when nobody watched, especially when nobody watched. But today, the system wasn't looking back. His fingers brushed over the raised print on the pamphlet. Your trust is our mission. A line someone in a marketing department had been paid to write. Someone who had never had to choose between gas in the tank or antibiotics on the kitchen table. He stood up and walked slowly back toward the teller window. His shoes didn't make much sound on the tile, but a few people looked up anyway. Maybe it was his posture. Maybe it was the way he moved. Not slow, not rushed, just steady. The teller, Emily, her name tag read, saw him coming and smiled faintly, the kind of smile customer service training videos recommend. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, but like I mentioned earlier, I understand, he said gently, raising a hand to interrupt. I really do. You've got procedures. I've followed a few of those in my time, but I think this one's got a hole in it. Emily looked unsure. My pension, Raymond continued, is the same every month. Same date, same amount. Been that way since 2006. No missed deposits, no foreign wires, no sudden spikes. He took out a small printed receipt from his jacket pocket. It posted this morning, on time. She glanced at it, then back at her screen. It did post, yes. But once it was flagged by our system, the transaction access was locked down by automated security protocols. There's no override at the branch level. Even if the hold is on a federal military pension, even when there's a medical emergency involved. Emily hesitated, then offered what Raymond had come to recognize as the default response of the powerless. You could try the helpline. Sometimes they're able to... He took the pamphlet again. I've used that number before. You get menus. Then more menus, then someone reading from the same script. There was a pause. He leaned slightly closer, not threatening, just tired. My wife's name is Lorraine. She's been sick for a long time. Last night, her fever spiked. The doctor called in a prescription this morning. It's ready, but they won't release it until it's paid in full. And I don't have another account. This is it. Emily blinked. She opened her mouth, closed it. I'm not trying to make trouble, Raymond said, but I gave my word to someone who needs me, and I don't plan to break that. A voice behind them spoke up. Is there a problem here? It was Mr. Decker, the assistant manager, emerging from an office with a half-eaten protein bar in one hand. Raymond turned slowly. No problem, he said. Just looking for someone with authority. Decker approached the counter. Sir, we're aware of the situation, but unfortunately, once a security flag is issued by the system, it becomes a compliance matter. Even I can't reverse it locally. Raymond asked, and when did following protocol become more important than helping people? Decker offered a patient smile. We have safeguards for a reason. Imagine if someone drained your account through fraud. You'd be glad we had these. Raymond didn't answer. He just nodded once. I see, he said. Then he walked away, sat back down, slipped the pamphlet into his coat pocket. His fingers moved to the lining, brushing against the spine of the black leather notebook he always carried. Not for records, but for the names he couldn't afford to forget. He pulled it out, placed it on his knee, and flipped it open, slowly, deliberately. There, between a Navy contact from 1989 and a number written in blue ink from a ship medic's widow, was the name Wexler, John T. And beside it, written in smaller print, only if absolutely necessary. Raymond stared at the name on the page, John Wexler. Back then, he'd been just Wex, a civilian analyst fresh out of grad school, dropped into a Navy Joint Command during a crisis simulation in '93. His hands had trembled the first time he handled live radio. He didn't know the difference between a secure channel and a scrambled one. He barely knew how to hold eye contact with the brass in the room, but he listened. And when the communications grid collapsed mid-operation, it wasn't the captains or admirals who fixed it. It was Raymond, quietly, efficiently. He showed Wexler how to reroute the signals manually, using a fallback patch designed decades earlier, something most officers had forgotten. For 3 straight nights, they worked side by side. When the drill ended, Wexler shook his hand like a man who understood the weight of what he'd been given. A week later, a handwritten letter arrived. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't need to. You just did what mattered. I won't forget it. Raymond had folded the letter carefully, slipped it behind the last page of this same black notebook. Now, 31 years later, Wexler was no longer Wex. He was John T. Wexler, Senior Vice President of Operations for Bank Trust United. Raymond looked at the note on the page again, not with longing, but with calculation. He didn't want to use it, not for pride, not for pity. But Lorraine was coughing blood that morning, and when she tried to stand, her knees had buckled. She had whispered, "Don't worry, just bring the medicine." He had said, "I will." That was a promise. Raymond reached into the inner pocket of his coat, pulled out his flip phone, old, solid, scratched at the corners. The screen glowed dimly. He scrolled past names of shipmates, old friends now gone, until he found it. JW, do not use unless critical. He opened a new message, paused, then typed, Wexler, it's Raymond Cole. I never thought I'd use this. Pension frozen today at Elkhart branch. My wife's antibiotic is waiting. They won't release the funds. Just thought you'd want to know. R.C. Key. He read it 3 times, made no edits, no request for favors, no pleading. Just the facts. He hit send. The phone chirped. Message sent. That was all. Raymond closed the flip phone and returned it to his pocket. Then he sat back, letting the silence of the lobby settle again. No one noticed him. The teller was laughing softly now with a customer, some joke about passwords and birthdays. The assistant manager's door was ajar again, revealing an untouched cup of coffee and a copy of Small Business Monthly on the desk. The lobby speakers played a faint melody meant to calm. Raymond didn't move. His coat remained draped over his arm. His posture was military even now. Back straight, feet flat. He opened the black notebook again, eyes scanning other names. Names that had once been numbers on clipboards. Men who had led in silence. Others who hadn't made it back. Then, a buzz. Short. Direct. He opened the phone. Received. Sit tight. Don't speak to anyone. Give me 7 minutes. Wexler. Raymond stared at the message, then closed the phone. No smile. No sigh of relief. Just a stillness that had been trained into him over decades. Waiting didn't mean doing nothing. It meant you were ready. The chime over the glass doors rang softly, the same tone used when a mother walks in to deposit a check or a high school student cashes his first paycheck. But this time, it rang like a bell before a verdict. John Wexler stepped into the Elkhart branch of Bank Trust United with a look that cut through every cubicle and break room in the building. He didn't speak, didn't pause. His coat was still on, half-zipped against the February wind. A worn leather folder was tucked under his left arm. His right hand held a single printed page. Behind him, A younger man in a navy overcoat followed quietly. His eyes scanned everything: exits, cameras, staff posture. No one greeted them. No one had time. Wexler's gaze locked on the man seated near the front bench, the only one not moving. Raymond stood slowly, spine straight despite the years. He didn't smile, didn't question, just extended his hand. John. They shook hands like two men who had once walked through fire the same way, with control. "I'm sorry this happened," Wexler said, voice low. "It won't happen again." He turned to the nearest teller. "Who processed Mr. Cole's transaction request this morning?" The young woman behind the counter froze. I did, sir." "And who authorized the hold explanation?" A voice came from the hallway. "That would be me," said T. Decker, now emerging with his name badge askew, tie half tightened, and a folder still in his hand. He looked nervous, but trying to mask it with protocol. Wexler didn't respond immediately. Instead, he walked calmly to the front desk and laid the printed page on the counter. "This is a system error report from our last internal update. It flags a known issue with repeat merchant authorizations, especially in pharmacies. That's what triggered today's hold." He looked up. "And no one here thought to question it?" Decker cleared his throat. "With all due respect, sir, we followed the established protocol." "No, you didn't," Wexler cut in, his voice sharpening. "You followed rules, not judgment." He turned to the teller. "Did you ask for supervisor override options?" No, sir." "To verify a pension deposit from a verified account?" She looked down. "No, sir." Wexler exhaled, not with anger, but disappointment. It was heavier. He tapped the keyboard at the open terminal, entering credentials the branch staff had never seen in person. His fingers moved quickly, eyes scanning. Account ending in 2190, Raymond Cole, Navy veteran, payouts consistent for over 15 years, flagged this morning at 8:07 a.m. He hit a final key. Hold lifted, immediate access restored. He turned to Raymond. "You can access your funds right now. But more importantly, I've just transferred the cost of your wife's medication today from my office's discretionary emergency fund. And for the next 12 months, anything her pharmacy submits to this account will be covered in full. No forms, no delays." Raymond didn't blink. He simply said, "That's not why I called." "I know," Wexler replied. "That's why I answered." Then he turned back to the branch floor. The staff had gone quiet. The waiting line had dispersed. "Every person in this room, listen carefully. What happened today wasn't just a failure of software. It was a failure of awareness. You have veterans who built the country walking into your branches. They don't ask for favors, but when they ask for help, you listen." He turned to Decker. "You'll be retrained, personally. Starting next week." He turned to the teller. "You'll shadow our veteran accounts liaison for the next month." He looked at them both. "You'll remember this day, and you'll do better. That's not a threat. It's your opportunity to stay." Wexler then approached Raymond again. His expression softened. "I hope Lorraine gets better soon." "She will," Raymond said quietly. "Thanks to you?" "No," Wexler replied. "Thanks to you for calling with dignity when most would have shouted. If you believe quiet dignity should always be honored, consider subscribing. We tell stories for people who still care." Raymond walked out of the bank with quiet steps. No one followed. The wind had picked up since he first arrived that morning. It wasn't sharp, just steady. The kind that makes flags shift on the pole and sends grocery bags tumbling across empty parking lots. Across the street, the pharmacy's neon sign blinked open. Ray paused on the sidewalk, adjusting his collar against the chill. His phone buzzed once more. A message. Transfer confirmed. Meds ready for pickup. No balance due. Wexler. He didn't reply. Just closed the phone and kept walking. The pharmacy clerk greeted him by name. "Mr. Cole, it's all set. They said someone from head office called. That doesn't usually happen." Raymond gave a polite nod. "Appreciate it." She placed the small paper bag in his hand like it was something sacred. Outside, he didn't rush. He walked back toward his truck, parked under a leafless maple tree near the edge of the lot. The vehicle was older, a late 90s Ford, but clean, well-kept, just like everything he touched. Inside, he placed the medicine on the passenger seat and started the engine. The heater groaned to life. 15 minutes later, he was home. Lorraine was still in bed, a pillow tucked under one arm. Her breathing was slower now, steadier, but weak. She turned her head as he entered. "You get it?" Raymond nodded. "Yeah. Took a little longer than I thought." She gave him a tired smile. "You always come through." He placed the bag on the nightstand. No ceremony, no story, just did what needed to be done. Later that evening, as the sun began to drop behind the tree line, Raymond stepped out onto the porch. The air was colder now. In his hand, he held the small black notebook. He sat on the wooden step, resting it on his knee. Opened it, flipped to the page with John Wexler's name. He stared at it for a moment, then pulled out a pen. No speech, no deep breath, just a firm, deliberate line drawn through the name. Not out of anger, not to erase it, but because the notebook had done its job, and some things, when answered properly, don't need to be called again. He closed the notebook, tapped the spine twice against his knee, and then just sat there, quiet. The porch light flickered on behind him. Inside, Lorraine's soft cough echoed through the cracked window, but it no longer carried the weight of fear. Just recovery, just normal, just life, the kind worth protecting. If this story meant something to you, type dignity in the comments. Your voice matters, and I read every single one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, here's your quiet reminder. Thank you for being here.